Alright, so I know that this video is quite overdue, but now that I have a 9-week-old at home, it makes it a little bit harder to get things done. But I am finally going to share my birth story. So first off, I want to say, if you're pregnant and you're scared about birth, don't be. You can do it. Everybody's going to have a different story. Everybody's going to go differently, but you can do it. I know you can. I did it. I did a natural home birth. I did a water birth. My baby was 6 pounds 10 ounces and 19.4 inches long. My labor was 20 hours of pre-labor, 3 hours of active labor, and 1 hour of pushing, and that girl was out, and I didn't tear. It was awesome. Obviously not the best feeling thing in the world, but it was awesome. So that's my story. In a nutshell. I'm going to elaborate though on how I got to that point. But yeah, it's a really amazing process. I'm not gonna say like, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. Like the whole time you're not thinking about anything except for getting that baby out, and that is like on your mind, and you're just like, whatever I have to do to get there. So in the process, it's not necessarily beautiful. It's just go time. But now I look back and I'm like, gosh, that was really cool. Like I was really excited to experience labor, so experiencing it was just like, I did that. Like I did that. I had a baby. This body housed a baby for 9-10ish months and was able to give birth and then almost bounce back, almost. So we'll start from the beginning, and I'll try to keep this short, but I doubt I will. So my baby was born on a Friday early in the morning at 1:45, I believe, a.m. on March 16th, 2018. Wednesday night, we get home, and I'm a little bit bummed because I'm like, gosh, I was really hoping that she would be born by now. But I just kept telling myself, you know what? She's going to be born when she's going to be born. So I just kind of let it go. That night, about 2 in the morning, so it was Thursday morning, I woke up to feeling kind of just a little bit achy and nothing big at all. And mind you, up until this point, I haven't really had much of anything going on, like to tell myself, like to know that I would be anywhere close to preparing for labor. Like I didn't really have the, discharge or anything like that they talk about. I did a little bit, but it was nothing like I expected. So there was no signs in my mind that I was anywhere close to going into labor, which was also really disappointing. But so Thursday night, 2 in the morning, I wake up, I go to the restroom, and I notice like there's just kind of a very, very, very slight tinge to the discharge that I had. And that's what is called bloody show, and I knew what it was, but it was so slight that I was like, this is probably nothing to be worried about. It might not, it might mean nothing, absolutely nothing. So go back to bed. I wake up a couple hours later. I'm kind of feeling that achiness again. I go to the restroom, and there's just a tiny bit more of the bloody show. And let me tell you, I just expected it to be a lot different. I heard that it would be, a lot of this stuff coming out, and that it would be this and that, and for me it wasn't. It was so slight that it was hardly noticeable. Like I could have easily overlooked it, except for the fact that I was looking for every sign I could that I was getting close to labor. So anyways, at this point, now it's about 6 in the morning, Thursday morning, and I'm up. I have started to time my achy feelings because I figured, well, maybe this is contractions. So when I started timing them, I realized, okay, there's a bit of a pattern here, and it lasts for almost a minute. Sometimes it was closer to 30 seconds, but I was like, okay, this feels like what I would consider a contraction. So I knew that I was having kind of just those pre-labor contractions, those kind of, non-painful, gearing you up to contractions starting around that time. So that day we actually had an appointment with our midwife to, get checked out and everything. So I went in around, I think it was 12 p.m. on Thursday, And I had already told her, hey, I've had, you know, these things happen, you know, what do you think? And she was like, well, it sounds like you are in pre-labor, so you should have a baby soon. So that was exciting. And then, of course, we go to the checkup, and, you know, I was telling her, you know, I'm kind of feeling them here and there. Some of them are strong, some of them aren't. So they were prepared then, okay, you know, we're probably going to have this baby either tonight or tomorrow, which was so exciting to hear because I was just ready. I was ready. And I was so afraid that I was going to have a baby like 2 weeks after my due date and end up having to go into the hospital. Like, you know, you just have all these kinds of fears. So it was awesome to know that literally the day after her due date, we were seeing signs of labor. So the day goes on. I go to business as usual. Me and my husband went out to a Brazilian restaurant and got to enjoy our last meal as non-parents together, and we did a couple of different things throughout the day. That night I got back to the apartment. I believe it was probably 7, maybe 8 o'clock. Things started to definitely pick up, and I was starting to get a little bit more antsy. Like I feel like I need to get in the zone. Like I need to prepare myself for labor. So me and my sister and my mom, we went off into into Olivia's nursery. I turned on some nice calming music, and we just kind of relaxed. And at that point, my contractions started to come closer and closer together. So I was having them, you know, anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes apart. So I knew things were getting pretty serious, although at this point it still wasn't necessarily painful as much as it was just really uncomfortable and achy, but they were getting stronger, I could tell. So around 3 to 5 minutes apart, around 9:30, I thought, you know what, let's go for a walk. I want to get things moving. You know, I can feel that we're getting somewhere. I had contacted my midwife again to let her know, hey, the contractions are getting closer together. So me and my sister, hear my baby. Well, I almost made it through the video without having to pick her up, but here's my little love, woken up from her nap, very much awake. Say hi, everybody. I'm the cutest thing in the world. Oh, my sweet princess. She's so cute. Back to the story. So we get out of the room that we were in, me, my sister, and I, and we were about to walk outside to go for a walk, and then my water broke, and that was at 9:40 Thursday night. And I was so excited because I really wanted to experience my water breaking before actually going into labor. So I got to, and that was the weirdest feeling in the world. It doesn't feel like you're peeing yourself necessarily, but it does feel like somebody just splashed warm water on you. And like as soon as my water broke, I thought I could hear it and I thought everybody could see it, but nobody noticed. I run into the bathroom. I was like, oh my gosh, my water just broke. And so everybody's like, what? And I like go to the restroom and I realized like, yeah, like this is definitely my water breaking. Like that was not me. And immediately after, everything got really intense. So this is when active labor definitely started. At this point, it's just me and my sister and my mom. My husband went downstairs to the coffee shop we own to help them out with something. He didn't realize that it was getting serious. We all thought that, you know, I still had several hours, or maybe even the next day. It was just me, my sister, and my mom. After my water broke and things got really serious. I called my midwife and I was like, you might want to head over soon because my contractions are about 2 to 3 minutes apart and I'm having a hard time concentrating on anything else during them. And I mean, anything else. It was hard. So I was in my bathroom for a little while, just like in the shower, not with the shower on. I was just holding onto the rail that was in the shower, trying to get through some of the contractions. And then after that, my mom was like, would you like for me to fill up the bathtub? I was like, heck yeah, fill it up. So she filled up our garden tub that we have, and I got in there, and oh my gosh, it felt amazing. It just immediately takes pressure off of your body. So I was in there for 3 hours. So I was in there for the whole time of active labor before I started pushing. I was in my own bathroom. And during that time, the midwives had gotten to my apartment. Everybody had gotten together and was trying to get things, you know, ready for a baby. And they started to fill up the birthing tub, which is like 150 gallons. And we should have gotten started on that a long time ago, because it took a long time to fill it up. So this whole time I'm just, you know, laboring in my own tub, doing just fine. The contractions were not necessarily painful. They were just, it was a lot of pressure. I mean, imagine, it's a baby's head. There was a lot of pressure everywhere down south, and it was so uncomfortable. So every time a contraction would come, like, I would just automatically move around, and like I couldn't get comfortable through the contraction, but then it would end and I would get that lovely break in between, and I just took advantage of every single break. Because my contractions were so close together, I wasn't focused on anything else. I wasn't trying to entertain anybody. I wasn't trying to open my eyes and look around or take in the moment. No, my eyes were closed the whole time, and I just got through every single contraction as they came, and rested in between as much as I could. It really felt like an out-of-body experience. Like, I can't even describe it. It was just like everything went by so fast and so slow at the same time, and I was out of it. I mean, even in my pictures and the pictures of the birth, you can tell, like, I was out of it. I was in a whole nother world. But by doing this, it was just really relaxing. Every contraction as they came, I just let my body do its thing, and I never tensed up. I didn't try and fight it. I just let my body do what I knew it had to do to have a baby. So I feel like that was key in my labor going as well as I did. What are you saying? About at the point when I was getting ready to go into the birthing tub, so I was about 3 hours after my water broke. At that point, my husband had already been back for a while, so it was me, my husband, my sister, my mom, and my midwives had gotten there. So I knew exactly when I was in transition, because I had done so much reading on like what you feel and what goes on in transition, that I knew that's what was happening, because I was extremely nauseous. Hey, it's okay. I was extremely nauseous. I was super uncomfortable, and so I knew, like, this is probably transition, or at least I hoped that it was transition, because that's what it felt like, is that my body was, you know, getting ready for the pushing stage. And so my midwife at that point checked me and said, "You are at a 9. And there goes the pacifier. Finding out that I was in transition and I was about to be ready to push was so exciting. So at that point, the birthing tub was ready, so I got out of my own tub and they got me into the birthing tub. And then pretty soon after that, I started to get those urges to push. And let me tell you, when you get the urge to push, like, ain't nothing gonna stop you from doing it. Your body knows what it's doing, and it's gonna do it whether you like it or not. The midwife was telling me, you know, don't push just yet, wait just a minute, you know, give your body a little bit more time to stretch, blah blah blah. I'm like, lady, like, try to tell my body that it's just pushing. Like, you get that urge and it happens whether you like it or not. So it was the weirdest sensation ever, because I always got kind of nervous whenever I could feel like the next push come, like I could feel the next urge to push. It would be like, oh, I don't want to. But then once I would just give in and be like, one more push, just one more push, and just kept saying that, like, each time it was almost relieving. Like, the pushing stage was really not that bad for me. Like, it was pretty relieving, to be honest, like, each time you push, because you know you're bringing that baby down more and more, and you're getting closer to the end goal. Which honestly wasn't necessarily on my mind. Like, I wasn't thinking like, oh my gosh, this baby, I'm almost gonna have this baby. I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is almost over, this is almost over. So the baby wasn't even necessarily on my mind. This is the part where things, in my opinion, actually got painful, and that would be the crowning. So when she started crowning, yeah, that's when I was like, oh, okay. So this is what they call that ring of fire. I get it now. That was painful. The whole rest of the labor, I wouldn't necessarily have considered it painful as much as it was just uncomfortable and achy, like super achy. But not necessarily like painful, or at least how I perceive pain. But the ring of fire was definitely a ring of fire. They kept telling me like, reach down, feel her head, which I thought, like, I didn't want to move at all the whole time. Like throughout the whole birth, or the whole laboring, I just wanted to stay still, get through each contraction, and then just not move the whole time. So every time they would be like, you know, can you do this or do that, which they didn't much. I mean, they just let me kind of do whatever I needed to get through. But, you know, anytime she was like, can I check you? Or why don't you reach down and feel? So, you know, give you some encouragement. I'm like, no, I don't want to move. I don't want to reach down to feel anything. I don't want to do anything but just lay here because I was exhausted. But I did eventually reach down, and I could feel her head and feel all the hair that she had, which I was shocked. I honestly didn't expect her to have any hair. And so it was a little bit encouraging, like, okay, we're almost there. We're getting there. So, like I said, 1 hour of pushing, it felt like forever. And then at the same time, when it was over, it was over. But because I let my body just push at its own rate, I didn't overdo it. I didn't try to, you know, push her out faster than what my body was telling me to do. Then I didn't have any perineum tearing, or perineum, whatever they call it. Didn't have any tearing. So she was born, and it was like just the craziest feeling. That last push, so they had, you know, I'm pushing, and then they tell me, okay, the head is out. And so I was like, all right, hardest part is done, thank the Lord. So I'm just kind of resting until the next urge to push comes. And then at that point, I locked eyes with one of my midwives, and she was like, just give it one more push. And it was like the most like calming voice, the most like, you can do it, just one more. And so I don't know what it was, but in that moment I was like, okay, yeah, one more push. And so I did. I gave it everything I had. I gave it one more push, and her shoulders were out, and the rest of the body just came swirling out. And I mean, I didn't really know all what was going on at that point, other than I think the baby's out. In the pictures, I'm able to see like, okay, that's when she was born. As soon as she's born, they lay her on my chest, and like it was just the most, like, it wasn't a love at first sight feeling. It wasn't like they laid her on my chest and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't love anything else any more than I loved this baby. It was more of like a, I'm responsible for this. Like, I just felt this immediate, like, this is my baby and I'm responsible for her and I'm gonna take care of her. But it wasn't like a, oh, I'm so in love and like butterflies. It was just like this, like, this is my child. Like, that's her, and I've got to take care of her. So yeah, and she was the most calm baby. She cried for like 2 seconds, so we all knew, okay, she's alive, she's good. And then after that, she just stared at me, and we stared at each other for probably an hour. Just, you know, she'd make all these little noises, and gosh, it was just the most surreal moment of my life. So they had gotten me out of the birthing tub, and honestly, out of the whole laboring process, that was probably the worst part, because I was so comfortable and so warm in the birthing tub, and then as soon as I get out, it is freezing cold. But they got me into my bed and threw tons of blankets on top of me and Olivia, and we just laid there, and she stared at me. We nursed for a while. She was like right on, didn't have to, you know, didn't have any issues with that. She nursed right away, and everything's blissful. You know, I'm starting to get those feelings of like, oh my gosh, it's done, she's beautiful. and then I start having more contractions. I forgot that you have to birth that dang placenta too. So my midwife looks over at me and she's like, when you get the urges, like, go ahead and push, like, you know, you're almost done, but you gotta deliver the placenta. So that was also annoying because you think you're done, your body's finally relaxed, it doesn't have to push anymore, and then, yes it does. But pushed that puppy out, and then we were good to go. I actually cut the cord myself. Eder was a little bit too squeamish to do it, so I cut the cord, and it was kind of a neat experience to be able to be like, you know what, we're no longer one, but you're your separate person. That's the majority of the story. I think the main points are, it was not at all as painful as I thought it would be. I think though, if the labor would have been longer, it would have been a lot harder, but the fact that it was very short made it easy because I was exhausted and I only had 4 hours of active labor. So I can't imagine having a longer labor and trying to push through it, and you're so tired. Like, I think I would have opted for an epidural or something myself, because that just, it was a very exhausting 4 hours. To see the pictures and to look back on it, it's really cool to be able to see like everything went the way I wanted it to. It worked out, and I know that's not everybody's story, and that breaks my heart, honestly. I don't know what I deserve to have such a perfect birth and a perfect baby, but I did, and I'm really thankful. And I've almost considered becoming a doula just because I want everybody else to experience like the beauty of pregnancy and birth, but I know everybody's different. But I still feel like all of the research that I did and all of the books that I read made a huge impact on how my mental state was in the whole process. I knew what was happening. I knew to let my body to just do what it needed to do, and because of that, I had the experience that I did. And you know, I worked really hard to have the labor that I did, and I know every woman does. Like, everybody's always trying to work hard. Like, we're all trying to eat healthy and still work out, walk, all that kind of stuff, do whatever we need to do to make sure that delivery is nice and easy. But from the beginning, from when I was about 3 months pregnant until the end, I was doing everything I could to make sure that my birth was exactly what I wanted it to be. But I also had in the back of my mind the expectation that it probably wouldn't. And so I think that because I never like told myself like it's this way or no way, that it just took the pressure off. I was like, whatever happens, happens, and I'm just going to go with it. I know how to prepare myself, and I know how to, you know, prepare my body, and the rest of it is just gonna happen the way it's supposed to, and I'm just gonna let it. But yeah, it's the best thing ever. Motherhood is the best thing ever. She's the best baby. She's typically like super chill, and she just loves to talk and smile at you. She's so sweet. She's really peaceful. Are you smiling? What are you smiling at? Are you smiling? Tell everybody. Am I talking about you? Am I talking about you, princess? Hi, princess. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh. Motherhood is the best. I love this little girl. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Look at you. Look at you. You're so cute. You're so cute. Oh. She's like, will you please change my diaper now? I will. We're done now. Oh, here you go. She sleeps about 6 hours the first stretch at night, and then another 3 to 4. So she's sleeping pretty good, and I definitely cannot complain. She eats great. She naps good during the day. She's typically just really chill, happy baby. Hey, don't prove me wrong. Don't prove me wrong. I hope this video inspires you to just not be afraid. Like, My labor was awesome. It can be awesome. Your labor can be awesome. And I feel like a lot of it was just where I was at in my mind, how I made it, how I felt. But yeah, I will talk to you guys later.